Kotaro Sato is quite odd for a 4-year-old boy. He lives without his parents, does everything by himself, acts more mature than most adults I know, and talks in a Shakespearean dialect inspired by his favorite cartoon character. Right now, he is visiting a convenience store and asks the lady working there for some tissues. She initially hands him child-friendly tissues, but he wants the grown-up stuff instead. He politely thanks the lady after grabbing 5 boxes of tissues, and as he walks to the counter, he spots toy swords for sale. Kotaro buys a sword for himself, convinced that he is a samurai lord like his favorite cartoon character, Tana-sama. Soon, he reaches his new apartment, where he has just moved and makes a nameplate for himself when he hears the voice of a slap that is coming from his neighbor getting thrashed by his ugly girlfriend. The shaggy man named Karino makes the excuse that he was working on his upcoming manga till late night, so he overslept and couldn't come to their date. He then calls his girlfriend by his ex's name, adding fuel to the fire, and earns one more smack before she runs away. As the man sits on the floor, caressing his cheeks, Kotaro rings his doorbell and introduces himself as he presents him with a box of tissues. Karino is pleased to learn that Kotaro is his new neighbor, but then he recalls that the landlord does not allow tenants who have kids. Our Chad 1100 tells Karino that he has no kids living with him and that he is renting the whole apartment alone. Kotaro heads back to his room after that, and Karino's brain works just like Windows XP as it tries to process what he just heard. A few moments later, Kotaro rings the bell again to ask Karino why there is no bathtub in his room. Karino replies that they have no bathtub in this building, and the tenants go to a public bath nearby. Kotaro thinks that Karino talks like Mike Tyson, and by bathhouse, he means battlefield, so he draws out his sword to battle him. Karino corrects him and gives him a free coupon for the bathhouse. Kotaro leaves for the bathhouse, but as Karino turns on the TV and hears news about kidnapping, he gets a bit worried and decides to join the boy. Kotaro gets soap in his eyes, so he asks Karino for help, and he gives him a bonus and shampoos his head too. Kotaro claims that he can wash himself, but he is glad that someone is washing his hair after a long time. Later, they walk back to the apartment while talking about the bath, and Kotaro remarks that he has enough money to visit the bathhouse every day. Karino is curious and learns that the landlord allowed him to rent the apartment just because he could pay the rent. As for his parents, Kotaro claims that they no longer live with him, and Karino regrets asking about them. He tells Kotaro that he lost his parents early on too, and Kotaro remarks that he must have been lonely. Karino suddenly realizes that Kotaro is lonely too, but he decides not to be a busybody and just walks him home. The next day, Kotaro leaves for some chores, and Karino follows him because, even though he doesn't understand the reasons, he is worried about the boy. On the way, they meet Mizuki, another person living in the same building, and she thanks Kotaro for the tissues. She then looks at Karino, and seeing his eyes, she guesses that he is Kotaro's dad. He refuses the allegation and claims that they are just neighbors. Later, Kotaro and Karino enter a supermarket for some shopping, where he thinks that they don't even look that similar. However, everyone comments on how alike the father and son look, and Karino is distraught. He learns that Kotaro is 4 years old and tries to remember if the girl he dated 4 years and 9 months ago mentioned something about this. He is terrified of the possibility that a child support lawsuit is waiting for him somewhere and asks Kotaro about his parents. Kotaro is annoyed by his questions and tells him not to follow him, as he does not want people to mistake an ugly man for his dad. Soon, they leave the shop and return to their apartments, where Karino runs into Mizuki, who apologizes for the misunderstanding earlier. Karino says that clearing up the misunderstanding was a good thing for him, but he feels sorry for Kotaro, who is forced to remember his separated parents every time someone talks about them. The next morning, Kotaro and Karino leave their rooms for garbage duties at the same time, and they find Mizuki collapsed on her doorstep after drinking too much last night. Mizuki wakes up, and it is clear that she is still high, so Kotaro asks Karino to look after her as he goes to the store to buy something for her. Karino cannot leave him alone and follows him, asking what he wants to buy. Kotaro claims that he wants ice for Mizuki, baffling Karino. He trips on the way, but tells Karino that he does not like crying and runs forth. They return to Mizuki with a frozen bottle, and Kotaro tells her to apply it to her eyes as it relaxes them after crying a lot. She is taken aback and says that she is just drunk, but Kotaro tells her that it is okay to cry, and Mizuki's expressions soften as she thanks Kotaro. Later, the men leave her alone, and Karino asks Kotaro how he knew she was crying and how to help her. He replies that he has seen adults cry many times, and he knows how to deal with them. The next day, Karino presents his manga to the editor, who says that his story is good but the drawing is horrible. Karino's self-esteem takes a hit, and his lower back follows as he tries to get off his futon in a hurry. As he is crawling on the floor, Kotaro rings the bell, and Karino tells him that the door is open. Kotaro enters the room with a stack of bandages on both knees and says that he scraped them while fighting pigeons when he was cleaning the floor. Karino says that's a lot of bandages, and Kotaro indirectly insists on praising him for being a brave boy who can treat his injuries himself. Karino praises him, and on the same note, he asks him for help with his back before drawing caricatures of tuna salmon and Kotaro on his bandages. Kotaro smiles on seeing the drawings, and Karino is taken aback because he saw him smile for the first time. Just then, someone rings Kotaro's doorbell, and as Kotaro and Karino peek outside, they see a funky gangster, who gives Karino a death stare. However, he immediately starts coddling Kotaro, thanking him for the tissues the other day. Kotaro points his sword at the perverted gangster, who drags him along so that they can play in his room. Kotaro tells Karino to call the FBI, but he absent-mindedly follows them. In his room, the gangster gives Kotaro a tuna salmon plushie, who accepts it but tells him not to try to hug and head pat him again. The man introduces himself as Tamaru and claims that he bought this plushie for his son, who apparently hates him and doesn't even want to see his face. Kotaro asks Tamaru if he is his son's replacement, and the gangster falls silent. Kotaro returns the plushie, declaring that he does not need it if it is a lie, and Tamaru simply apologizes. As they return upstairs, Kotaro asks Karino if the sketches he drew on his bandages are a lie too, and he replies that he put a lot of effort into drawing them for him. Kotaro declares that it is not a lie and runs to his room, where he acts like a tsundere and tells Karino that it does not mean he likes him. One day, Kotaro visits Karino's room to watch his favorite cartoon, tuna salmon, since his TV has not arrived yet. They watch the anime, not knowing they are anime, and Kotaro repeats all the lines the samurai says. However, Karino feels that the show is nothing special, and at night he finds that it is not a popular one either. He wonders why Kotaro is so obsessed with the show that he even copied the talking style, but since his TV is going to come tomorrow, Karino won't have to bore himself with the show anymore. The next night, Karino and Kotaro go to the public bath, where Kotaro sings the tuna salmon theme song off-key. Karino asks him what he likes about the show, and Kotaro replies that he knows that the show is mid, but the hero samurai is special to him. A boy is crying in front of them, refusing to leave the bath with his dad, and Kotaro walks up to him to say that he should be glad that there is someone by his side even when he is crying. As the boy leaves, Kotaro says that the boy is lucky because he probably won't need the help of TV in the middle of the night. Karino feels sorry for Kotaro, who later declares that he does not need the help of TV now because he is already a better adult than most people, and Karino reminds him that he is wearing his shirt backwards. Later that night, Kotaro watches tuna salmon as usual, but then he learns that the next episode is going to be the finale. The next morning, Karino wakes up as Tamaru rings his bell and asks him what they are going to do about the tuna salmon finale. Karino hasn't even processed if it is day or night yet, but Tamaru lectures him that Kotaro will be sad when the show ends, so they must do something for him. Karino realizes this too, and as he reveals that he saw the show with Kotaro, Tamaru gets jealous and threatens to put him through the roof. Outside, Kotaro is sitting by the street, asking for 10 cents to do a tuna salmon impression. The girl comes there with her boyfriend and lets Kotaro do his impression. However, when she reaches out for her purse, Kotaro offers her 10 cents from his side instead, but does not give anything to her boyfriend because he did not appreciate the act. Kotaro gets more visitors, and he only rewards those who really enjoy his show. As he sits waiting for more people, he remembers how his mother would smile when he imitated tuna salmon for her. Later that night, as Kotaro is waiting for the finale, Tamaru and Karino pay him a visit because they want to watch the finale with him since they thought it would be the end of his Shakespearean language. Kotaro declares that even if the show ends, he will keep talking in the same archaic language. The trio watches the show and repeats tuna salmon's lines, and Tamaru quarrels with Karino since he is not being serious. Kotaro smiles on hearing them bicker and asks them for 10 yen. After the show, everyone goes back to their homes, and Karino asks Kotaro if he will be fine at night now that tuna salmon is over, and he replies that he does not need TV anymore. The next night, Kotaro and Karino walk to the bathhouse again, and he complains that they do not need to go there daily since that shit is expensive. Kotaro claims to have enough money, and tells Karino that if he can't afford it, he should stay home. However, when they reach the bath, they find that it has been temporarily shut down because of technical issues. They return home, and the next morning they meet each other at the garbage collection spot. Kotaro keeps on staring at Karino, who doesn't understand what he wants. Later, as they go to the supermarket, Kotaro still keeps on staring at Karino, telling him to keep his distance. He offers the money to the cashier on his sword and asks her to put the change on it too. The next day, the distance increases, and Kotaro calls Karino from outside the store to collect the change from the cashier. When Karino tries to give him the groceries and change, he backs away, and tells him not to approach him as he has not bathed for 2 days. Karino tells him that it is no big deal, and he shouldn't care so much about what other people will think just because he has not bathed. Kotaro runs back home, and before Karino can chase him, Mizuki arrives there and asks him to use his brain before speaking. She suggests that Kotaro might have had a terrible experience because of not taking a bath in the past, and he is trying his best so that it is not repeated. Later, Mizuki peeks inside Kotaro's house to find him sitting in the kitchen sink that has been modified into a bath. Kotaro is proud of his problem-solving skills and claims that now Karino won't hate him. Karino is hearing everything, and he wants to tell the boy that no one will hate him for missing a bath or two. Anyway, the bath is reopening tomorrow, so Karino thinks they can go there again. He leaves his room as Kotaro invites Mizuki to the bath, but she refuses, asking him to wait for 15 more years. At night, Kotaro can't sleep, so he ventures outside with his pillow and finds Mizuki returning from her job. He is about to tell her that he is scared, but his pride gets in the way. The next morning, he meets her again, and she can see the dark circles under his eyes. At night, Mizuki notices that Kotaro's lights are still on and finally realizes what is going on. The next morning, she tells Kotaro that it is her day off and invites him for a sleepover, and she even accepts his invitation to go to the bath. They bathe together, go to a restaurant, and watch TV before sleeping. Kotaro tries to be a man and offers his arm as a pillow to Mizuki, who takes the offer. However, it does not help Kotaro sleep, and the next morning, Karino finds him looking even worse. Later, he asks Kotaro if he is having trouble sleeping because of nightmares. He affirms and adds that last night he could not go to sleep because it was his first time sleeping with a woman. Karino is taken aback and thinks that men will be men. That night, Karino invites Kotaro for a sleepover, and the next morning, his sleeplessness is cured, and he even had a wet dream about Mizuki. Soon, it is time for Kotaro to enroll in kindergarten, and he goes there alone and tells the receptionist that he does not need any adults for this ceremony. He feels a bit lonely seeing everyone's parents in the empty seat next to him, but he toughs himself up, saying that it is nothing. A kid asks him why he is alone, and he replies that his parents are ninjas, so they are here, but no one can see them because of their hiding skills. Meanwhile, Karino is brushing in his room, and he gets angry as he remembers how insensitive Kotaro was this morning. He refused to tell him where he was going and even forbade him to follow him. Soon, Mizuki and Tamaru visit him, wanting to see Kotaro, but he has no idea where he went. Just then, they see a girl wearing the same helmet as Kotaro, whose mother drags her along, saying that they are getting late for the enrollment ceremony. They immediately rush to the school and introduce themselves as Kotaro's parents, surprising the receptionist about the crazy family with 2 baby daddies. They race inside, talking about how they could miss such an important event. Karino comes first as he takes a seat next to Kotaro and tells him to be a kid and rely on adults. Tamaru and Mizuki also reach there, and seeing them, Kotaro asks for help in wearing his badge properly. Soon, the classes start, and Kotaro buys his lunchbox to take to school every Wednesday. His friends have a fancy lunch made for them, and he takes a picture to copy it the next time he brings his lunchbox. The next Wednesday, he makes a tuna salmon lunchbox for himself and amazes his friends. However, as he hears other kids talking about making their next lunchbox with their parents, he feels left out. The next Wednesday, he takes help from strangers in designing his lunchbox and actively involves them in making it too. He takes his lunchbox to school, and his friends remark that the previous one looked better, but Kotaro smiles, saying that this was miles ahead of it. Later that day, he returns to the supermarket and waits for everyone who helped him create the lunchbox so that he can properly thank them. The next day, Kotaro keeps staring at a man distributing balloons to kids at school, before asking if he wasn't going to fly if he kept holding so many balloons. The man replies that they don't live in a Pixar movie and asks Kotaro what color balloon he wants. Kotaro wants red and blue, but since he can only get one, he chooses the red one, claiming that he wants it for his brother. Moments later, he changes his getup to ask for another balloon, like I change my email address to get free Netflix streaming. Just because he wears a hat, Kotaro thinks he can fool adults, and he asks the man to give him a blue balloon for his sister. Soon, he comes wearing glasses and asks for a pink one for his mother, and after that he does a Tamaru imitation to get a light blue one for his dad. The man gives him the balloon and guesses that he will come to get one for himself now, but Kotaro doesn't return. He takes the balloon straight to Karino and asks him to draw the faces of a boy, a girl, and their parents on them because his drawing is good. Karino is flattered and sketches on the balloons, and Kotaro writes their titles on the back. Later, when the balloon man is returning from work, he sees Kotaro playing with all the balloons tied around his waist. He feels like he got tricked by a kid, but then sees that he had made them substitutes for his family. The man gets emotional as he sees the lonely kid playing with the balloons and hopes that they last a long time. The next day, as Kotaro leaves the school, Karino comes to pick him up, and the teacher mistakes him for his elder brother. As they walk home, Karino gets a call from his editor about the manga, and he rants out to Kotaro that they are going to chew him out at the monthly meeting. Kotaro tells him that he needs an adult with him so he is not bullied, and he volunteers to fill that role like a Chad. Despite Karino telling him not to come, Kotaro joins his meeting with the editor, who mistakes him for his son. After clearing up the misunderstanding, Karino presents the manuscript to the editor, who remarks that he does not like his old school drawing style. But Kotaro barges in and declares that the drawing is good enough. He tells the editor to stop overthinking and asks him to show how good his drawing is before criticizing others. Karino shuts him up before he gets him fired, and then leaves for the washroom. In his absence, Kotaro asks the editor for his honest opinion on Karino, and he replies that his strength is his storyline, but he is weak at other things. He claims to give his honest feedback to Karino so that he can improve on his drawings, convincing Kotaro that he doesn't do it to bully him. As Kotaro returns home with Karino later, he concludes that the editor seemed like a good guy. Karino asks him why he came along in the first place, and Kotaro replies that he wanted to pay him back for accompanying him everywhere. He declares that he is Karino's guardian from now on and will accompany him the next time too, which he does. Soon, Kotaro visits Tamaru and stops him from getting too close with his sword. He asks him to join him for shopping, as he has the best dressing sense of all the men he knows, and he wants to be a well-dressed man too. Tamaru readily agrees to join him, and they visit a shopping mall where everyone is on their edge because of him. As Kotaro changes, Tamaru sits outside, asking him who is the girl he wishes to impress. Kotaro replies that he doesn't dress for anyone, and Tamaru peeks inside, asking him to be honest with his feelings. Just then, a policeman comes there, saying that the FBI sent him. He asks Tamaru about his relationship with the boy in the dressing room. Before the matter escalates, Kotaro comes outside and asks everyone if he looks cool. As they return home, Tamaru asks him whom he wants to impress, and Kotaro replies that he wants everyone to like him. He saw on TV that everyone likes stylish people, so he wants to be cool and stylish too. Tamaru squats in front of him and asks Kotaro if he hates not being liked so much. Kotaro affirms, but Tamaru tells him that even stylish people like him are hated sometimes, so it is not everything. Just then, another policeman comes to apprehend Tamaru, but Kotaro defends him, saying that he is his neighbor and a friend. Later, Mizuki is doing her job in a bar lounge when she finds that Kotaro has come there as a customer. She is astonished and tells him that they do not serve minors, but he is adamant about her accompanying him while he drinks. Mizuki rushes to call Karino, but by the time she returns, Kotaro has charmed a few people with his cute acts. Karino comes there out of breath and drags Kotaro away, asking him not to cause any trouble for Mizuki. However, Kotaro does not give up and returns to the bar the next night, asking Mizuki to accompany him again. She tells him that this place is not appropriate for him, and if he wants to see her, he can visit her home. That reminds her of the event a few days ago, when Kotaro was having tea and snacks with her. However, she got a call from the landlords just then and told Kotaro that she was wondering if she should renew her contract or move to a different place. She told Kotaro that she would probably stay here for him, but by that time, he had left the room and headed straight to Karino for advice. Unaware of what he was doing, Karino claimed that if he were in his place, he would go to Mizuki's bar and choose her to spend more time with her. Kotaro did just that, and now he asks Mizuki how many times he needs to choose her so that she stays with him forever. She gently pats his head as she tells him that she will always stay next to him, and Kotaro clutches her waist with his tiny hands. Moments later, Karino comes running to take Kotaro back, but Mizuki decides to treat them both today. But she soon regrets her decision as the two men start checking out other women and ignore her. A few days later, Kotaro and Mizuki are on a picnic date when Karino arrives with ice cream. They give him the cold shoulder, saying he wasn't even invited, but he lets himself in anyway. Kotaro eats ice cream like my dog eats his treats and smears everything over his face. Mizuki and Karino plan to click pictures, but Kotaro starts shaking his head, claiming that he is allergic to pictures. They chase after Kotaro for pictures as he runs, and Karino runs out of gas first. As Mizuki chases Kotaro, Karino gets an idea, so he whips out his sketchbook and starts sketching them. Later, as they return home, Mizuki remarks that Kotaro dodged the camera better than her father dodged his responsibilities, and Karino says that he hid his face even in the entrance ceremony photo. Kotaro once again tells them that he is allergic to having his pictures taken, as he recalls a horrible memory. He was in an orphanage when his angry cokehead dad came there looking for him because his picture was on the website. Kotaro was terrified, and from that day on, he started to hate his pictures being taken. The next day, as Karino walks Kotaro to school, he hands him a piece of paper. Kotaro opens it to see a sketch of him and Mizuki enjoying their picnic, and he blushes as he asks Karino to color it later. A few days later, Kotaro has a visitor who appears very nervous about meeting him. The woman is Kobayashi, a junior lawyer at the firm that handles Kotaro's case, and she has been tasked with giving him his allowance. Kobayashi is stunned to see that her client is so young, and Kotaro gives her a grand welcome as he invites her in. They toast with milk, and then he proceeds to sing the Tana Salmon theme song off-key for her before treating her to tandoori chicken. Kobayashi then hands him his allowance, and Kotaro gives her a return gift. After that, he asks the woman where this money comes from, and she recalls what her boss told him about dealing with Kotaro. The money was from his mother's life insurance, but she was only allowed to say that it was a donation from a kind person since Kotaro had no idea about her death. Kotaro has heard that response many times, and he claims that he is kind to the lawyers who come to him because he wants to convey his kindness to the donor too. Kobayashi is left speechless, and as she leaves Kotaro, she runs into her boss, who came to pick her up. He asks her to look at the gift, and she finds a journal about Kotaro's last week. The boss says that Kotaro always gives them this journal so that the kind person who sends him money can know that he is living well. Kobayashi is shaken, and she swears that she will see her job of looking after Kotaro through. A few days later, Kotaro visits his friend Takeru, mistaking his housekeeper for his mom. The housekeeper tells Kotaro that both of Takeru's parents are busy working, so she looks after him during the day. As the two boys bond over their love for tuna salmon, Kotaro notices that Takeru is a spoiled brat who relies on the housekeeper for everything, probably even wiping his ass after using the toilet every morning. So, on their next meetup, Kotaro takes his friend on survival training. They take a long hike to the river where Kotaro teaches Takeru to create fishing rods out of chopsticks and makes him catch a crayfish. However, Takeru is a snowflake and starts crying after the crayfish grabs his fingers, asking Kotaro for help. Kotaro tells him to be brave and stop relying on others for every little thing. Takeru takes his instructions and becomes brave, catching some more crayfish. Kotaro then declares that they will eat these creatures now and takes the shocked Takeru to his apartment. Kotaro gives his friend cooking show vibes as he says that he has pre-cleaned crayfish already since it takes time to do the cleaning. He begins planning the correct way to prepare it for a newcomer, and Takeru says that they don't need to cook it because he can always ask his housekeeper to do it. Kotaro shakes him, asking him what he would do if he had no money or adults to help him, and Takeru realizes he wouldn't last a day like that. Kotaro claims that it is exactly why they should be self-reliant, and Takeru follows him as they cook some seafood. While cooking, Takeru tells Kotaro that if he ever gets lonely being alone, he can call him, and they will go fishing again, making him very happy. The next day, Karino goes to pick Kotaro up from school and finds that he had a nosebleed. He asks about who the chick was that caused it, but the teacher explains that they were playing dodgeball today and Kotaro caught a ball with his face, leading to the nosebleed. To avoid that in future, Kotaro asks Karino to teach him how to catch a ball, and he successfully catches it, but with his face again. No matter how slow Karino throws it, the ball always hits Kotaro's face, and he wants to know if there is a secret to catching it. Karino can only repeat what his high school volleyball coach told him and says that throwing and catching a ball is like having a conversation. Hearing this lights up Kotaro's eyes, but as Karino asks him to practice throwing, he refuses, saying his specialty is catching. The next day, there is another game of dodgeball, and Kotaro uses his special skill to defend his teammates by taking all blows to his face, which is a safe area, and he does not get out even after getting hit each time. When Karino comes to pick him up, he finds the boy in a complete mess and agrees to train him once more. The results are the same crushing defeat as yesterday, and Karino asks Kotaro to learn to dodge. Kotaro refuses to do that, as it would mean that he is ignoring his friends who throw the ball. He reminds Karino that he said throwing and catching a ball was like having a conversation, and he does not want his friends to be unheard. As he does that, Kotaro recalls when he used to draw sketches and show them to his mom, but she was busy with her phone and ignored him. Kotaro does not want to hurt anyone by ignoring them like that, and Karino understands what he means. However, he tells him that he can't always be the one receiving and must try throwing the ball too so that he can be understood. His words touch Kotaro, and the next day, he can miraculously catch the dodgeball with his hands, and as Takeru catches his throw, he praises him. Soon, Kotaro tells Karino about a birthday party in the kindergarten as they return to their apartments. Karino guesses what's up and asks Kotaro if his birthday is coming, which he affirms. As soon as he says this, Mizuki and Tamaru jump out of their apartments and declare that they will organize a birthday party for Kotaro. Kotaro doesn't even know much about birthday parties, and he thought it was a way to eat cake and blow on candles, so he is shocked when Mizuki says they should celebrate because they are thankful for him being born. Kotaro decides to start prepping for his birthday party, and he trains to increase his lung capacity by blowing into empty bottles. The day of his birthday finally arrives, and he is amazed to see his cake. As Mizuki and others turn around to wear some cool party accessories, Kotaro takes the cake and runs away, leaving a note that he is borrowing the cake. He runs to the local park to celebrate the birthdays of all the stray cats he plays with. He puts all the candles he has on the cake and sings happy birthday to the cat before blowing candles and the cake on their faces. He is out of breath and then tells the cats that he is celebrating their birthday because he is glad they were born. The cats start licking him, and he takes it as a sign of their happiness. Soon, Kotaro's friend Takuya pays him a visit, and he wants to run away from his nagging family. He invites Kotaro to join him so that they can roam freely and be bad boys. Kotaro tells him to treasure his family, but Takuya replies that if they go missing, their family will be the one to treasure them. Kotaro sees a point and tags along, buying snacks for the two of them. They play in a park and eat snacks, and Takuya is jealous that Kotaro does not have a limit on his snack budget, and no one has ever told him to not travel on trains alone. Kotaro says his life is nothing to be jealous about, but Takuya doesn't understand him. The night comes soon, and Kotaro invites his friend over. Takuya claims that Kotaro's parents will be worried about him because he was missing from home all day, but when he finds that his parents are not there, he feels guilty and sad, so he runs back home. As he is left alone, Kotaro thinks that no one will be worried about him even if he runs away. But then Karino comes running to him, claiming that he ran to the bathhouse 3 times to find him. Kotaro sincerely apologizes for worrying him, realizing that someone will be concerned about him after all. As the days pass, Kobayashi keeps visiting Kotaro to give him his allowance, and he always puts on a show for her. She tries her best to play along, but Kotaro notices that she is always stiff and asks her if she is hiding something from him. Kobayashi panics, but then a mailman rings the bell and leaves Karino's parcel with Kotaro since he is not home. Kotaro finds that the parcel is a pack of beers, and he immediately pours a drink for Kobayashi. She is initially hesitant, but one drink leads to another, and she turns into that one drunk uncle at every Christmas party. Kobayashi laughs, calling Kotaro tone deaf but commending his performance, and he is glad to see she is not acting now. He takes this chance to ask her if the money is really a donation from a kind person, and Kobayashi almost gets in the mood to tell the truth. However, she tells him that the money is really from a kind person and then begins to apologize to Kotaro. She falls asleep like that, and Kotaro covers her with a tiny blanket, thanking her for being honest. A few days later, Kotaro has his first parent-teacher meetup, and Karino comes there as his guardian. Everyone is disgusted by how shabby and disinterested he is, and as they leave, the parents talk about how Kotaro's family is a mess and there were 3 weirdos who were acting as his guardians. The leader of the Parents Association also pities the boy since she has the same impression of Karino. Soon, she holds a meeting about the annual festival in the kindergarten and asks the parents to volunteer to prepare for it. No one wants to do that, but Karino raises his hand, claiming that he can do all the tasks alone so everyone else can rest. He calls Tamaru, Mizuki, his editor, and the clerk at the convenience store for help and helps to organize a fun party. The Parents Association leader thanks him for volunteering and he replies that it was tough work, but at least it made Kotaro smile. The woman remarks that she was touched by how he thinks of Kotaro's happiness before taking action. Karino replies that no matter what he and his neighbors do, they are not Kotaro's real parents, and it would have been better if they were here. However, she thinks he is a perfect parent already. A few days later, the kids in Kotaro's kindergarten are down with a cold and a runny nose. Takuya forgot his tissues at home, so his friends offered to give him some. Kotaro does the same, but everyone is shocked that he was using grown-up tissues and not the ones with anime characters drawn on them. Later, Kotaro goes for tissue shopping with Karino, and he has some intelligent conversation about tissue quality with the clerk there before buying one of the most expensive ones. Karino is taken aback by the boy's interest in tissues, and even as they walk back home, Kotaro lectures him about the benefits of expensive tissues, saying they are sweet. At night, while Karino is drawing his manga, the TV program shows an interview where a man claims that when he was young, his parents didn't come home for days on a stretch. He had no money, so he often ate tissues to quell his hunger, and the better the quality, the sweeter they were. The realization hits Carino like truck kun, and the next time he goes shopping with Kotaro, he asks him if he eats tissues, and he affirms. Carino gives him the regular cheap ones, telling him that he does not need to eat tissues anymore, and Kotaro also realizes this. Later that day, Kotaro cooks a hearty dinner for himself, and Carino rings the bell for some apartment-related business as he is eating. Carino is amazed by the amount and variety of food he has cooked, and just then Mizuki also comes there. She is surprised that Kotaro can cook and asks if he can cook for her. Kotaro affirms, and knowing that Mizuki is coming, the simp Carino says he will join them too. On the next day, Kotaro's 3 guardians come to eat dinner with him, and they eagerly wait for the buffet. However, Kotaro presents a single dish to them, and everyone is shocked because they were hoping for a wider variety of cuisines. Carino asks Kotaro if there is nothing else, and Mizuki and Tamaru scold him for being insensitive. They begin eating and compliment that Kotaro belongs on the stage of MasterChef. Kotaro is happy to receive their compliments, and he thinks that he did not need to make many dishes to keep him company today as he has guests to fill that role. The next day at school, the tired teacher puts on a fake smile before entering the class. She tells the kids about the Parents' Day program that will happen soon and asks them what role they would like to play in a skit. Kotaro volunteers to be the smiling son, and everyone is shocked because they have never seen him smile. Kotaro claims that he is good at putting on smiles, as he demonstrates his bright smile to the entire class, and everyone, including the teacher, is amazed. Later, she asks Carino about Kotaro's general expressions, and on learning that he always kept his poker face, she tells him what happened in the class. Carino replies that Kotaro has faced a lot of troubles at a young age, and therefore he might have accumulated some skills to please others. Soon, the Parents' Day skit is held, and after it is over, the teacher compliments Kotaro's smile. She says it will be good if he can show his natural smile more, but Kotaro replies that he finds it hard to do so. He then remarks that the teacher is the same as him, and she should also try to show her natural smile more. He claims that he can see through her act, and the surprised teacher can only smile at him while patting his head. At night, one of Kotaro's friends from his previous orphanage comes to visit him on the top of a hill, as they once made a promise to see a meteor shower together. Just as the man named Ryota sees Kotaro, he starts singing the Tana-Salmon theme song, and Kotaro joins him. They sit down and talk about how Kotaro had to leave the orphanage in a hurry after his cokehead dad discovered he was there. Before leaving, Ryota showed Kotaro his night sky photography collection and offered to teach him how to use the camera. Later, they promise to see a meteor shower together, and Ryota thanks Kotaro for remembering the promise. In turn, Kotaro apologizes for taking Ryota's camera when he left the orphanage because he really wanted it. Ryota takes the camera back and gives Kotaro the memory card, saying this thing contains their memories of the orphanage. Kotaro thanks him, and then the meteor shower starts. A few days later, Kotaro visits Carino's editor with his manuscript because Carino collapsed in the hallway because of a cold. The editor finds it remarkable that Kotaro came here all alone. After that, Kotaro starts asking him questions about his work and tells him to take care of himself because he always looks exhausted, and he replies that his wife takes good care of him. Kotaro can't believe a loser working even on Sundays has a wife and kids. He immediately takes the manuscript back, telling the editor to go spend time with his kids, as today was Sunday. That hits a sore spot with the editor, but then he notices Kotaro's toy sword and tells him about the toy collection at their office. Kotaro says he has no interest in toys, but as soon as he hears that Tana-Salmon merchandise is also there, he readily agrees to come along with the man. He is amazed as he sees the Tana-Salmon plushies and the life-size doll, but then he feels like the editor is trying to tempt him when he should be spending this time with his children instead. The next day, the editor visits Carino and tells him that he met Kotaro yesterday. Since he always acts so mature, the editor wanted to give him a tour of the toys section so that he could behave like a kid. But in the end, it ended up dissatisfying him because he felt like he was taking the attention of someone else's dad. However, just as he leaves the apartment, Kotaro approaches the man and says that he would like another trip to the toys section in their office, but only if it is on a weekday. A few weeks later, Kotaro and Carino go shopping and find the clerk there with a huge baby bump. Unaware of pregnancies, Kotaro decides to buy all the food items in the store because he fears the woman is getting too fat from eating them. The next day, he runs into her and asks her if she is getting fat because they make her eat all the leftovers in the shop. The woman laughs as she tells Kotaro that there is a baby inside, and he asks her why she ate one. She replies that babies are made in the mother's belly when a man and woman love each other, and Kotaro wonders if he was also made with love. The clerk tells him that his parents must have loved each other to give birth to him. She says that kids are the parents' treasure who make them happy, but he feels uneasy on hearing this. Kotaro cannot stop thinking about her words and wonders if his parents love each other and if he is doing his part to make them happy. Soon, Kobayashi comes to give him his allowance, and Kotaro gives the return gift as usual. She reads his weekly diary and finds that he wants to tell the kind donor that he will do his best to be a treasure. A few days later, a new tenant in the same building greets Kotaro, introducing himself as Ayada, who will be living downstairs for 1 month. Ayada gives Kotaro a gift and then immediately proceeds to make a request. He asks Kotaro to be his friend during the 1 month he stays here for his business trip because he gets lonely too quickly, and Kotaro readily agrees. At night, Karino finds Kotaro leaving for the bathhouse earlier than usual and learns that he has promised Ayada that they will visit the bathhouse together from now on. Kotaro claims that even though he never made such a promise to Karino, he feels he must tell him this is in advance. Karino does not mind, and then Kotaro adds that Ayada is going to drop him and pick him up from school every day for a month, so he wants Karino to not be jealous, and his reactions are animated as he claims to not be jealous. Soon, Kotaro starts spending a lot of time with Ayada and finds that they are both like-minded when it comes to their snack preferences. It is raining outside, so Ayada uses metal utensils to create makeshift musical instruments, and Kotaro stares at him curiously. The next day, Ayada greets Karino, who thanks him for taking care of Kotaro. After that, Ayada asks him how much he knows about Kotaro's parents and finances, and Karino clearly tells him that he shouldn't go digging into someone's private life. Ayada politely retreats then, but at night, he calls his boss, telling him that he has found his son. The next day, Tamaru notices Kotaro getting close to Ayada, and he can't hold back his jealousy. He immediately goes to Karino and rattles him, asking how he could let a stranger get so close to Kotaro. Karino asks Tamaru his views on Ayada, and he immediately replies that the man is definitely sketchy. On that note, Karino tells him that Ayada was looking for Kotaro's personal information earlier. Tamaru knows what it means, and at night, while Ayada is doing his research on Kotaro, he pays him a visit. Tamaru and Karino barge into the room, with Tamaru confronting Ayada about being a detective. He hands him a bundle of notes and tells him to spill the beans. Ayada shamelessly pockets the money and reveals that he is here to find Kotaro on his father's orders. He adds that Kotaro moved here to escape from his dad's clutches, who is under a restraining order. He claims that he will do his job and report this location to his client, no matter what happens after that. He says that a kid like him won't be happy to live alone anyway, making Tamaru furious. He is about to throw hands when Kotaro arrives there for the bathhouse visit and actively defends Ayada. Tamaru leaves because he doesn't want Kotaro to know the truth, and Karino follows him, still thinking about what Ayada said. Meanwhile, Kotaro and Ayada keep getting along well, but after they return from the bathhouse, Kotaro asks him if he is going to tell his dad about his address. The man is taken aback because he never hoped he would be caught. The next day, Kotaro rings Karino's doorbell, telling him to escort him to school since Ayada has left his room in a hurry. After dropping Kotaro off at the kindergarten, Karino runs back to tell Tamaru about this, who fears that the detective has run off after being found, but it is too late. Just then, Mizuki comes there too, and after learning the truth, Kotaro's 3 parents sit outside the school gate to guard him. Later, they surround him like a VIP and claim that they must make sure he is safe from danger. Kotaro claims that he is strong enough to look after himself, but they don't stop and keep protecting him everywhere. At night, Kotaro snaps at them and runs away, telling them not to treat him like a weakling. He goes back home and starts training when Karino rings the bell and asks Kotaro why he wants to live alone. He replies that he wants to grow stronger but does not say anything else. The next day, the parent trio is worried about Kotaro when Ayada comes there. Tamaru is about to throw hands, but Karino and Mizuki hold him back. Ayada tells them about his mission, but then Kotaro comes there, so he decides to escort him to the park first. In the park, Ayada claims that Kotaro's dad was excited to learn his address and will probably make a move soon. However, he did not give him the real address, but only a dummy address to put Kotaro out of harm's way. He shows the burn marks on his stomach and says that his parents used him as an ashtray, so he knows what Kotaro can go through. That is why he betrayed his client to protect him. Aota says that Kotaro already guessed his relationship with his dad because he played the same games his father knew he liked. Kotaro then cornered him about the fact and requested that he not tell his father his address until he got stronger. Aota says that he ended up accepting his request, but he also does not know Kotaro's reasons. However, as Kotaro scolds his friend for being a weakling, he reveals that he blames his weakness on his father turning into a bad guy. He wants to grow stronger so that he can turn him back to the path of righteousness and live with him again. As they walk back to the house, Aota says that Kotaro's dad won't probably understand how his son feels, and his chances of becoming a good guy are close to my chances of getting a girlfriend. Karino decides to help him and challenges Kotaro to a race. Even after a foul start, Karino loses to a 5-year-old kid and then proceeds to ironically lecture him about growing stronger with the help of a rival. He tells Kotaro that they should get stronger, and his eyes light up as he accepts his offer. Temeru claims that it won't do any good in the long term, but Karino believes that this way he can help Kotaro remain cheerful until he understands that his approach is wrong. Soon, a scammer calls Kotaro's number, thinking that it is the number of an old couple who will be easy to target. He begs the old woman for money, claiming to be her nephew, but Kotaro replies that he is just watching the house for the old guys and tells the scammer to call back in 5 minutes. The man does exactly that, but Kotaro keeps on telling him the same thing over and over again till he gets frustrated. The scammer learns Kotaro is in kindergarten and lives without his parents. He reminds him of his son, whom he has always neglected, and the more he talks with Kotaro, the more he starts to regret leaving his family. He is about to cut the call when Kotaro claims that his voice reminds him of his dad when he was kind, and he asks the scammer to praise him. The man praises him and decides to quit this line of work to go back to his family. The next day, as Kotaro and Ayada are returning from school, Mizuki comes out and declares that her underwear is missing. Karino and Temeru come running after hearing this, and as she says that it vanished from the pile of dirty laundry, all the men begin to imagine things. Aota volunteers to help since he is a detective, and Kotaro decides to support him too. It is easy for Ayada to locate the stolen underwear in Karino's veranda, who gets thrashed from all sides, and Kotaro exclaims that he never thought he would get the jump on him. However, Ayada explains that it was the work of a cat, and he has already located the culprit too. Kotaro praises his skills, but Ayada says his line of work is something to be proud of since he often has to deceive people. To change his mind, Kotaro visits him the next day, claiming that all the boxes from his house have disappeared and he needs a detective to find them. Aota goes to Kotaro's room and finds ink on the table, which leads them to Karino, who claims he borrowed the boxes, but they disappeared. Aota smells Mizuki's perfume and goes to her, and she repeats the same thing before giving him Temeru's sunglasses. As Aota talks with him, Temeru accuses him of stealing the boxes and says they should check his room too. Aota takes him to his room and finds that Kotaro had thrown a surprise farewell party for him. Kotaro then asks Ayada, since his job for his dad is over, can he consider him a real friend now? He then gives him a box containing a magnifying glass to help him with his detective work as his farewell gift. A few days later, as Karino is about to take Kotaro back from school, a girl named Kana approaches Kotaro and asks to play with him today. Kana's mother approaches Karino and asks if it will be fine for her daughter to visit Kotaro's house and play there till evening, and he turns to Kotaro, who gives his seal of approval. Karino walks them home and finds that Kana is quite similar to Kotaro in terms of the constant poker face and mature behavior. They reach home and quietly stare at each other for a long time before Karino suggests that they should play cards. The next day, Kana wants to come over again, despite claiming that playing cards with Kotaro was boring. He replies that he has great skills to please adult women, but Kana has a few years to reach that stage. Day after day, Kana goes home with Kotaro, who also starts feeling that she will have more fun playing with someone else. She replies that it is fine because her mother also wants her to play with him. Everything suddenly makes sense to Karino as he recalls that some women were talking about Kana's father going bankrupt. As her mother comes to pick her up that evening, Karino confronts her, asking if she was sending her daughter to play with Kotaro because she doesn't want her to see households that are more well-off than theirs. She is taken aback, and Karino asks her not to disrespect Kotaro like that because, despite everything, he was trying his best to live here. She is left speechless, and as she takes Kana home, she asks if she has fun playing with Kotaro. Kana replies that it is not fun, but she feels happy that her mother smiles when she plays with him. The woman realizes her mistake and apologizes to her daughter. Soon, winter comes, and one of Kotaro's classmates, Kei, falls sick. Realizing that he has a history of being ill, Kotaro visits him in the infirmary during the lunch break and gives him an orange, saying that getting vitamins will make him strong like him and that he won't catch any illnesses. The very next day, Kotaro catches Kei's cold but refuses to acknowledge it and get treatment, even as the teacher tries to take him to the infirmary. She calls Karino, who tells him to return home, but Kotaro refuses, saying that a strong person like him cannot possibly fall sick. Just then, Kei tells the teacher he is feeling ill, and she takes him to the nurse. Kotaro follows him and asks him why he admits feeling ill so easily and if he does not fear people thinking that he is weak. Kei smiles as he says that he also wants to play with everyone, but more than that, he does not want anyone to catch his cold, so he has to be patient till he feels better. Kotaro realizes his mistake and apologizes to Kei, saying that he was indeed a strong person. He then turns to Karino and says that they should return home too. The next day, Kobayashi visits Kotaro on her day off and asks him to accompany him. He obliges, and as they ride the train, Kobayashi declares that she wants to buy an apartment with her savings, but has no experience with it, so she wants to take help from an expert like Kotaro. He is happy to help, but he tells her that she is too loud. As they reach the apartment, Kobayashi tries to create the environment that they actually live in, but Kotaro does not seem happy. The truth was that Kotaro used to live in this apartment with his parents a long time ago, and has painful memories of this place. Kobayashi's boss warned her about taking Kotaro there, but she thought it would be a good idea. Kotaro only thinks that it looks like the apartment he used to live in, but then he spots a peculiar mark on one wall, which removes all his doubts. Seeing his reaction, Kobayashi requests the agent give them some more time here. A few days later, Kotaro is foraging for edible herbs in the forest when 3 siblings come there for the same reason. The younger siblings cling to their brother, complaining they are hungry, and he tells them to wait as he starts looking for some herbs. Kotaro asks why he is wearing slippers in this cold weather, and the boy replies that he can't even afford food, so shoes are way out of his budget. He learns that Kotaro lives alone and thinks that his parents also left on a milk run like his parents. He asks Kotaro to look after his siblings for a while, saying that he has something important to do alone. Kotaro is stuck with the 2 crybabies for over 2 hours and decides to drop them home before it turns dark. However, as they reach the apartment, they find the elder brother eating chips while hiding from his siblings. He sadly gives his chips to them and tells Kotaro that sometimes he just wants to be by himself and not look out for his siblings. He explains that his mom left them with only a little money and told him to look after the young ones, but now he doesn't feel like it. Kotaro scolds him, saying that he should do what his mom asked him to, but the boy starts crying as he says that Kotaro should understand him since they were both abandoned by their moms. And he doesn't hold back as he shouts that his mom didn't abandon him. The boy has had enough, and he goes back to his home while Kotaro thinks about his mom. One day, she told him that she wouldn't stay with Kotaro's dad anymore and then started crying before she packed her bag for good. Before she left, she asked Kotaro to take care of himself even if she was not around, and that way she might return for him someday. He still believes her words and refuses to accept that he was abandoned. A few days later, when he visits the 3 siblings, he overhears people saying that the child services took them and since their parents never came back. but Kotaro still thinks they were not abandoned. The next day, he cleans his bed thoroughly and gives an energetic greeting to Karino because he plans to live life to the fullest, just like his mom asked him to. Soon after that, Kotaro treats Mizuki to some sweets the landlords gave him, and as always, Karino invites himself in. As they are talking and bickering, Mizuki gets a text from her toxic boyfriend about meeting him, and she deletes his message because she wants to break up. On the television, the trailer for the new Tana-Salmon movie is displayed, and Kotaro's eyes start sparkling as he sees it. Mizuki asks him if he really likes the cartoon so much, and he imitates Tana-Salmon, saying he wants to be strong like him too. Hearing his words makes her realize how weak she is, and at night, her boyfriend follows her home despite her reluctance to meet him. The next morning, Kotaro and Karino meet her while she is wearing a mask. But Kotaro's sharp eyes spot an injury on her face. Realizing she cannot win against him, Mizuki decides to tell Kotaro and Karino about her toxic boyfriend, who only dated her because he wanted money. When she tried to break up with him yesterday, he hit her. Karino says they should inform the police at once, and Tamaru barges in just then, saying they should skip that part and turn the man into a punching bag. Kotaro has another solution, and he asks Mizuki to leave this apartment and her job immediately since her boyfriend knows about them. She reminds him of her promise to stay with him, and even Karino says calling the police is better, but he is adamant that she should get out before things get worse. After that, he keeps on ringing Mizuki's doorbell to pester her, so that she leaves the apartment, but she catches him and says that she won't have to go anywhere if she calls the police. Kotaro is against that and says that if she calls the police, her boyfriend will become the bad guy. He can tell that she still has some residual feelings for him, and he does not want her to make him a criminal. Kotaro sadly tells her that he called the cops on his dad and made him a bad guy, but he doesn't want anyone else to repeat that mistake. Mizuki breaks down on hearing his words and decides to accept his suggestion. Later, she is all set to leave, and Kotaro is wearing a mask to hide his face as he wishes her goodbye. Mizuki tells Kotaro that what he did to his father was not wrong, and in the long run, it will be the best thing for both of them. She claims to have told the police about her boyfriend, but since he wasn't arrested, she was still in danger and has to leave the apartment now. Mizuki apologizes to Kotaro, saying that she couldn't keep the promise of staying with him forever, but he replies that he doesn't remember making such a promise. She starts crying as she hugs Kotaro, remembering all the happy moments that they spent together, and then thanks him for everything. After she is gone, Kotaro clings tightly to his dads, who tell him that no one will think he is weak for crying now, but he denies that he is crying. A few days later, Karino wants to take Kotaro to the Tana-Salmon movie, but he makes it sound like he is the one who wants to go see it for work reasons. Kotaro readily agrees to serve as his guardian, and at school, the mothers of his friends hear about this and ask Karino to take their kids along too. He couldn't refuse, so now he is stuck babysitting 3 kids, who give him hell even before they reach the movie hall. The 3 boys want to watch Jurassic Park 7, and Kotaro decides to watch it with them instead of Tana-Salmon. The kids pester Karino to buy them popcorn, and he does so only because he does not want Kotaro to look bad in front of his friends. Even in the movie, he is stuck looking after the kids. After the movie is over, they ask him to take them to the game parlor, and Karino is about to give in when Kotaro tells his friends that Karino is a broke manga artist, and they shouldn't pressure him. He leaves, and soon, the 3 boys go back with their moms. Karino squats on the ground, swearing never to take them to a movie again, and Kotaro sits right next to him silently. Karino asks him what the matter was, and Kotaro replies that he looked like he was having fun with his friends when he was supposed to be his guardian. Karino starts laughing upon hearing that Kotaro is jealous and then tells him that he is going to watch another movie, and this time it will be Tana-Salmon. Kotaro says that he has no choice in that case and joins him for another round. While he enjoys the empty show, Karino is bored to death. The next day, Tamaru comes to cuddle with Kotaro, as he was unable to meet his son once again since his divorced wife told him he hated him. Kotaro holds Tamaru away with his sword but still allows him in to rant out his troubles. A few days later, Kotaro finds a suspicious-looking boy snooping around the apartment who acts like a gangster upon being caught. However, his expressions soften when he learns that Kotaro lives here and that he might know his dad. Kotaro's first guess is Karino, who gets chills at being made a daddy suspect, but the boy says that his dad doesn't look like an unreliable wimp. Soon, Kotaro understands that Tamaru is the boy's father, and they wait for him to return from his job. The boy's name is Yuta, and when Kotaro remarks that he was said to hate his dad, he says his mom was a big fat liar. Just then, Tamaru comes to play with Kotaro, and he is stunned when he sees his son there. He asks why he was here, and Yuta replies that his mom kept it a secret that he wanted to meet him, so he found his address and came here without telling his mom. However, instead of being happy, Tamaru tells Yuta to return home immediately because he is not happy that he snuck out to be here. He claims that even if his mom kept things a secret, he should follow the rules and meet him only when allowed. He calls his divorced wife to take him back and clears everything with her. Before leaving, Tamaru tells Yuta that the next time they will meet properly, and then apologizes for sending him off like that. Yuta cries, but says that he understands. Just after he leaves, Kotaro stabs Tamaru, asking him why he was so strict when his son finally came to meet him. He replies that even though he wanted to meet Yuta badly, he does not want him to become an adult who breaks rules for no reason. Kotaro understands that this is Tamaru's tough love, and he replies that maybe Kotaro's dad was like this too. Kotaro's eyes widen as Tamaru says that it was wrong for his dad to treat him badly, but he would like to believe that he loved him too. Tamaru then starts crying, and Kotaro commends him for holding his tears when Yuta was here. Soon, an office lady named Sumair moves into the room vacated by Mizuki. Karino gets girlboss vibes from her, but Sumair turns out to be a nagging grandma who lectures him and Tamaru for not separating their trash properly. However, she praises Kotaro and other kids a lot, all the while sweating buckets. Karino recalls that she panicked when she heard about a child in the apartment, and he has put the FBI on his speed dial in case of any emergency. However, Kotaro seems to have fun playing tag with her, and Karino wonders where his normal perception and sensitivity went now. The next day, Karino requests that Sumair pick up Kotaro from school since he and Tamaru are busy right now. Despite her nervousness, she accepts his request, and at night, Kotaro tells Karino that Sumair came to pick him up in a taxi. He claims that the ride was fast, and it looked like she was pushing herself. Later, Karino apologizes to Sumair for making the sudden request during the day, and then remarks that it is clear as day that she is uncomfortable with children. She is aghast, and Karino says that Kotaro must have also noticed it, so she must not push herself. However, Sumair tears up as she says that life for women who don't like kids is really tough, and she has been judged for her nature a lot. She is trying to change it, and no idiot can tell her to give up now. The next day, Kotaro chases Sumair again and tells her that there was a time when his parents were uncomfortable with him too, but they overcame it, and he will help her do the same. Karino realizes that even though it looks like he is messing with Sumair, Kotaro is really thinking about her well-being. A few days later, Sumair is spying on Kotaro when Karino comes there. She says that Kotaro has changed in the past few days, and Karino goes straight to him and calls him fat. Kotaro doesn't mind, saying that eating is important to be healthy, and Karino confirms that he wasn't eating tissues out of habit. Kotaro then notices Sumair, so he starts chasing her again. A few moments later, Sumair asks Karino about eating tissues, and he explains that Kotaro used to do that when he was neglected by his parents. He is certain that it is not the reason for his weight gain, and then Sumair spots the poster for the Parents Association's monthly meet regarding the food at school. She volunteers to join it since she has studied nutrition, and Karino warns her against it, claiming that it will be like walking into a haunted house for her. Sumair realizes he was right only after she is surrounded by kindergarten students and regrets coming here. She doesn't find any problem with the menu in the school, but then all of Kotaro's friends start giving their leftovers to him to finish and run outside to play. Kotaro accepts all of them and keeps eating, as other parents praise him for not being picky. Sumair asks him if he is enjoying the food, and he replies that he does not care but that he cannot leave food in front of him. She is hurt upon hearing this and realizes that Kotaro won't waste food because he knows its value. The teacher and other parents also see this, and later they decide to instruct other students not to give their leftovers to Kotaro. Sumair is happy about that, but then Kotaro asks his friends to follow him in chasing her, and she feels she will die of a heart attack at this rate. A few days later, Kotaro has lost some weight, and as he returns from grocery shopping, he finds an oddly shaped rock and tells Karino that it will go straight to his collection. Karino is confused, and Kotaro explains that he has a collection of interesting items that he sometimes adores while sipping milk. Later that day, Kotaro puts a ticket to view his collection in the neighbors' letterboxes, and they assemble in front of his home. Kotaro welcomes them in and shows them all sorts of items he has been collecting over the years. There are the drawings Karino made for him, as well as the cloth bags he used for shopping with Tamaru. Sumair notices a pair of gloves, and Kotaro claims that his mother used them to hold him. Sumire is appalled because she knows what this means. She asks Kotaro to throw them away and gets too aggressive when he refuses. When she was a child, Sumire's mom always wore gloves to dress her and take care of her. One day, she heard her say that she was disgusted by her own daughter and couldn't bear to touch her directly. That is where Sumire got her child repellent genes from, and that is why she wants Kotaro to throw those gloves away. Kotaro apologizes to her and says that despite being uncomfortable with him, his mother went so far as to wear gloves to take care of him, and that is why he cannot throw them away. Later, Sumire tells Karino and Tamaru that she is aware of the painful feeling when a mother holds her child with gloves, and she wants to get rid of it for Kotaro. Karino replies that even that painful memory is something Kotaro holds dear, as it reminds him of his mom. Inside his room, Kotaro feels that as long as he has the gloves, his mother won't have any difficulty touching him whenever she returns. A few days later, Kotaro joins a soccer club at his school and practices with a senior named Haidai. Kotaro runs to pass the ball to him, but misses it by a mile, and then refuses to accept his failure, claiming that it was a feint. Later, Haidai teaches him to juggle the ball, and he kicks it straight into his face. As Haidai scolds him, the coach shouts at the students to leave the field. Haidai shudders upon hearing his voice, but he says nothing is wrong when Kotaro expresses concern. A few days later, their team has a match with another school, and both Haidai and Kotaro are confident in their skills. Haidai scores some goals, and as he is telling Kotaro to improve his game, the coach of the visiting team shouts, sending him shuddering again. The game resumes, and Haidai freezes like a deer in front of headlights when the coach shouts and lets the ball get stolen. His trauma of always being scolded by his angry parents grips him, and he can't stop shaking. Kotaro suddenly holds his hand and says that he learned this technique to calm down from a friend. He tells Haidai that no one is angry at him right now, and he snaps back to his senses as he runs back to the game. Kotaro follows Haidai, who shoots a shot on target, but the goalkeeper blocks it. The ball flies straight towards Kotaro, who uses his special skill and intercepts the ball with his face, scoring the deciding goal for his team. The next week, Kotaro goes to his dentist for a regular checkup and cleaning. The receptionist is suspicious of the the dentist, who takes a long time treating children and claims that he uses the extra time to chat. She peeks in during the treatment and finds that they are really talking about routine things. As Kotaro leaves, the dentist comes to scold the receptionist for eavesdropping earlier. She is still curious about why he takes time to chat with kids, and he recites the story of how it began. Long ago, he had a silent girl patient with terrible cavities, and it did not seem like her mother cared for her. The dentist told her about the next appointment in a week, but the girl came running into the hospital one day before the appointment, complaining about a terrible toothache. The schedule was packed, so the dentist gave her a painkiller and sent her off, asking her to come with her mom the next day. However, the girl never returned, and later she was taken into custody by child services after she became really frail. The dentist says that he should have noticed earlier that the girl was not cared for, just as he saw her cavities. From that day on, he decided to take time while treating kids so that they could tell him if anything was bothering them, and Kotaro was just one case. Soon, the rainy season starts, and one evening, Sumire finds Kotaro in front of the station, offering the service of sharing umbrellas with people who forgot theirs. He invites her, but she refuses, claiming that she has her umbrella. However, Kotaro's umbrella sharing service is really popular with other people, and his regulars line up to use the umbrella. The next day, Sumire finds Kotaro doing the same thing, and he seems to take pride in getting his shoulder wet to keep his companion safe. The next day, she meets him outside the station again and remarks that his shoulder is wet, but Kotaro claims that this is the way of the umbrella sharer that his master taught him. Sumire asks him the story behind it, and Kotaro says that one day, his master shared an umbrella with him and taught him that sharing an umbrella is an act of care, and getting one's shoulder wet is the proof of that. Sumire realizes that the master in the story was Kotaro's dad from back when he was a good man. Kotaro remembers him as well as his mother, who did not care if her son got wet in the rain. That is why Kotaro wants to become a pro at sharing umbrellas and getting his shoulders wet. His determination makes Sumire wet, and by that, I mean she is sweating as she asks to share the umbrella with Kotaro. A few days later, Kotaro and Karino walk home while quarreling about whether bananas go into curry or not, when an excessively flamboyant variant of Tamaru stops them. Karino wants to go back before he approaches them, but Kotaro runs to the man, calling him Tasuku. As they greet each other in their unique and silly way, Karino asks Kotaro if he knows the man. Kotaro explains that Tasuku was one of his friends at the orphanage, and then invites him over. Kotaro prepares lunch as they talk, and Tasuku asks him about Karino. On learning that he was close to his neighbor, he warns Kotaro to not let his guard down around him too much. After that, he asks Kotaro about his weekly allowance and says that he has a favor to ask of him. A few days later, Kobayashi visits Karian and gets her nose smashed as he opens the door. She is here to talk to him about how Kotaro has been asking her to increase the amount of his allowance every week and does not seem to be satisfied with it. She asks him if he knows the reason, and he has an idea. Later that night, Tasuku leaves Kotaro's room when Karino confronts him about Kotaro's finances. Tasuku claims that since they are best friends, he is planning to have Kotaro move together with him. And for that, he needs some extra money. He dismisses Karino's worries, saying that he is just a neighbor while he is Kotaro's best friend, so he knows what is best for him. Karino reports it to Kobayashi, who feels it is odd that Kotaro won't tell the lawyers anything about moving apartments. She plans to run a background check on Tasuku just to be safe, and Karino decides to talk with Kotaro about it. Kotaro affirms that he needs money to move in with Tasuku, and Karino leaves without saying much. As he is alone, Kotaro remembers the time when he was first sent to an orphanage. He started tearing his pillow because he was bored, and while other kids stopped him, Tasuku joined him, saying it was fun. Kotaro got along well with Tasuku and Ryota from then on and started talking with others too. Ryota felt that it was because Kotaro felt accepted by what Tasuku did, but he replies that it is just an exaggeration. One day, a girl lost her wallet, and she immediately blamed Tasuku for it since he had been arrested for shoplifting before. While everyone doubted him, Kotaro stood up for his friend and helped find the wallet. Later, Tasuku thanked him but told Kotaro that he trusted people too easily. The next day, Kobayashi visits Karino and tells him that Tasuku has many loans in his name and he is falling behind in payment, but recently, it seems he is paying them back little by little. They go to talk with Kotaro about this, but they cannot get too direct from the get-go. However, Kotaro tells them that there is no problem because he trusts Tasuku. Karino and Kobayashi decide to confront the source of this problem and ask Tasuku if he is using the money he got from Kotaro to repay his loans. He loses his cool demeanor, but says that he isn't doing anything like that. Karino suddenly grabs Tasuku's collar as he asks him if he trusts Kotaro as much as he trusts him. Tasuku doesn't understand anything, but as the two meddlers leave, he fears they may turn Kotaro against him. Kotaro returns from garbage collection duties just then and takes him inside. Karino and Kobayashi hear them from their room, and while she wants to intervene, Karino feels it is not the right time, and they must let Kotaro see the result of trusting Tasuku blindly himself. In Kotaro's room, Tasuku asks him if the lawyer and neighbor said anything to him, and he tells him that they were suspicious that Tasuku was lying about moving together and stealing the money. He is nervous and claims that Kotaro wouldn't have believed his delusions, but Kotaro knows exactly what is up. He claims that he knew Tasuku's real intentions before anyone, because he knows he fiddles with his left index finger whenever he lies. Despite that, Kotaro gives the shocked Tasuku the regular amount of money. Tasuku asks why he is doing this when he knows he is lying, and Kotaro tells him the same thing he once told him in the orphanage. He claims that he does not mind being betrayed by Tasuku, and he will believe his words even if they are a lie. Kotaro then presents him with a bag full of coins, saying that it was the money he earned himself collecting garbage to give to his friend. Tasuku asks why he would go so far, and Kotaro replies that he was happy when he said they could live together, despite knowing it was a lie. Tasuku breaks and says that after he left the orphanage, he trusted some people but got used and cheated instead, and that led him into this state. As Kotaro comforts him, he starts crying while apologizing to him. A few days later, Kotaro is picking up beer cans while Karino and Kobayashi watch over him. She claims that Tasuku has left his shady job and is working somewhere else, and he is also returning the money he borrowed from Kotaro bit by bit. Karino is curious about why Kotaro is still picking cans and learns that he still plans to own a home with his family one day. Karino's cold remarks are interpreted as his jealousy by Kotaro, who then smiles widely as he counts the names of all his friends and neighbors with whom he wants to own a huge castle and live there happily. Soon, Karino gets good news from his editor, who tells him that his latest one-shot manga was a hit, and they want him to expand that story into a short-term project. He is happy to hear that, but then his alarm rings because he has to pick Kotaro up from school. The editor asks him if he can balance a kid with the increased workload, but Karino is confident that he can do it. However, a girl who claims to be Karino's replacement reaches the school to pick up Kotaro. The teacher is worried, and Kotaro conducts a truth test by asking her to describe one characteristic of Karino to prove she knows him. The woman replies that Karino looks unreliable and passes the test. As Kotaro fetches his bag and hat, the teacher asks the woman to pass a pamphlet for an upcoming event to Karino, but she does not plan to do that. As they walk back home, Kotaro asks the woman how she knows Karino, and she says that she is his ex-girlfriend and is staying at his place for a few days. She introduces herself as Akane, and just as they reach the apartment, Kotaro learns that Karino did not send her, but she came to pick him herself. Karino scolds him for coming home with a stranger without proper validation, and then asks Akane if there was any message from the teacher. She replies that there is no message, as she recalls how she barged into his apartment 3 days ago since she was having a fight with her current boyfriend. She began looking around the house and was happy to learn that Karino had a new project that may turn into something big if it pulls a crowd. However, when she found Karino delaying his work to pick up his neighbor from school, taking him to grocery shopping and the bathhouse, she felt it was not the best for his career. Later, Akane tells Kotaro all this and claims that she will step in for Karino to accompany him for the next few days since he is too busy. She doesn't think much of her words, but Kotaro starts feeling like he is a burden for Karino. At night, Kotaro tells him that he does not need him to join him in the bathhouse or take him to school every day. Akane also tells Karino to get some work done, as she will look after Kotaro. However, he refuses their advice and joins them on the bath trip anyway, telling Akane that he is not going to change the way he does things just because there is a deadline in front of him. The next day, Akane takes Kotaro to school, and he is curious about Karino's physical state. She claims he pulled an all-nighter to work on manga, and Kotaro remarks that is why he looks like a zombie. She is shocked to see him coming along, but Karino is adamant about dropping Kotaro off at school no matter what. She tells him to get some rest as his deadline is tomorrow, but he claims to be fine. Akane fears that he might know about the school event that collides with his deadline, but she confirms that he has no idea about it. However, Kotaro gets sad after learning that and runs away. The next day, Akane tells Karino that she is going grocery shopping but goes to the school event instead. As Kotaro and his friends sing the song they have practiced, he looks sad because Karino is not there for him. But, surprise, Karino comes there and tells him to put a smile on his face. Kotaro is genuinely happy and gives it his all while Akane nudges Karino about what he is doing here. He claims that he lied earlier when he said he did not remember anything other than his manga deadline tomorrow. However, Kotaro's face drops yet again as he recalls that he is being a burden to his neighbor. Akane asks Karino about his deadline, and he claims that he can still make it if he stays up all night. She tells him that he shouldn't feel obligated to go so far for his neighbor, but Karino says that he might not be Kotaro's father, but he is his daddy. He wants to stay for him and remember these important events where the boy develops, which is the role of a good parent. He knows that they might separate at any time, but he still wants to look after the boy as best he can. As for the manga, he wants to succeed at it while taking care of Kotaro, so that he doesn't feel like he is a burden. Later, Akane apologizes to Kotaro for saying that he is wasting Karino's time. She claims that Kotaro was the more responsible one among them. She claims that he motivates Karino to work harder and make good manga, so the adult is the dependent one in their relationship. Hearing her words, Kotaro does a moonwalk and gets next to Karino, saying that he has no choice but to lift him up. One day, Kotaro remembers the story of when he used to live in his old apartment and his parents weren't there. One day, he rang the doorbell of an aspiring fashion designer who was delusional about getting quick success. The first thing Kotaro remarked on seeing the man was that there were a lot of stars on his dress. The man claimed that his designs were even better, and then he noticed that Kotaro's clothes were dirty. He told him to get his mother to wash it properly, but then his instincts kicked in, and he decided to wash it himself this time. Kotaro thanked him and then entered his room to take a look at his designs. The man claimed that he wrote God on his t-shirt design because it was a godlike design, but Kotaro told him it was so lame that he was sorry for him. The next day, Kotaro visited him again with the same shirt soiled again. The designer washed it again and then showed Kotaro his finished product, asking if it was cooler now, but Kotaro was firm that it was lame. A few days later, the designer brought a friend home to help him move out, and they found Kotaro being scolded by a neighbor for ringing their doorbell. Kotaro was relieved to see the designer, but then his face dropped as he learned he was moving away. The man also told him not to ring other people's doorbells for no reason as it was a nuisance, making Kotaro even more sad. However, he then invited him to check out the sample of the ultimate t-shirt he had created. But Kotaro ran away, saying it would be lame too. The designer's friend interpreted the boy's act of ringing everyone's doorbell as loneliness and not mischief. He knew a boy like that when he was in school, whose parents were never home, so he went to other people's houses to get some sort of company. The designer felt sorry about saying the hurtful things to Kotaro earlier, and the next day, he presented his final product to him. Kotaro claimed that it was as lame as ever, but thanked his friend, saying that he is the only one who can look good in this horrific design. Kotaro hid his face as he apologized for disturbing him every day, but the designer told him to keep ringing lots of doorbells, and even though most people won't open their doors for him, he should not mind them. Back to the present, Karino asks Kotaro about the same t-shirt he wears every day, and he claims that he loves this shirt even though it is kind of lame. The next day, a newspaper delivery boy is running late to deliver newspapers because he crapped his pants earlier. His last customer is Kotaro, who has received 4 of the 5 newspapers he has read already. He is initially upset about the delay but then becomes sympathetic about the delivery boy's diarrhea. The next day, the delivery boy is on time to deliver the newspaper. He then reads the name on his subscriber list to find that Kotaro was the one who subscribed to it. The delivery boy talks to his manager about this, who claims that Kotaro lives without his parents, so he was the one who ordered the newspapers. The boy thinks that Kotaro might have been pressured into purchasing 5 newspapers because he was a kind kid. The next day, he talks to Kotaro about canceling his subscription if he is forced to take it, but he refuses, saying he wants them all. He then asks the delivery boy for a favor and tells him that if there are more than 2 days worth of newspapers in front of his door, he must assume that something has happened to him and call the police. The boy is taken aback, but accepts his request. Later, Karino visits Kotaro for their grocery shopping visit, and asks if he is done reading all the newspapers. Kotaro says that he read all of them, and since his parents' names were not there, it means they are both fine. The next day, Kotaro is watching TV about a crowded shopping district that reminds him of his mom. He immediately goes to Karino to ask about the address of that shopping area because he plans to go there tomorrow. Karino scolds him for thinking about going solo and says he will take him there first thing in the morning. However, he ends up sleeping too late, and Kotaro pouts as he calls him a liar. Karino apologizes as he gets ready, telling Kotaro that lying isn't his thing, so he isn't going to start lying now. Kotaro is still not satisfied, and he says that he needs to buy him an alarm clock. They get on the train, where Kotaro shows the notes about a shop in the shopping district he visited with his mom. He only knows that it had a blue roof and lots of trees nearby, which Karino feels is not enough. However, his real destination is the graveyard near the shop, where he plans to pay respect to his dead maternal grandparents. Kotaro claims to have visited their grave once with his mom, so he wanted to visit it again even though he never saw his grandparents. They start cleaning the family grave, and Kotaro shows Karino how his mom's name was written. Karino notices her name on the family grave, and he is aghast. He does not move from the side where her name is written, even after they finish cleaning and offering their prayers, because he does not want the boy to read the name of her mother. Kotaro tells him to get back now, but Karino says he is more comfortable there. He is determined not to move from this place because Kotaro has no idea that his mother is dead, and he wants him to believe that she is still alive. Kotaro prays to his grandparents and asks them to tell his mom that he is doing well if she ever comes to visit their grave. Just then, he sees a woman with her daughter and begins missing his mom even more. He asks Karino if he will ever see his mom again, and Karino puts his entire code online as he lies to Kotaro and says he will surely see her. Kotaro believes him because just this morning, Karino claimed to not be a liar. As they return home, Karino asks Kotaro to promise to take him along every time they visit the grave, and even though he doesn't understand his reasons, Kotaro promises to take Karino along as he is his first loyal servant. Just then, Tamaru and Sumire also meet them, and Kotaro tells them about how he has made Karino into his servant. They bicker and banter as they enter their apartment, and Kotaro is happy about the life he is currently living.